Let's bring in former FBI Special Agent and Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, good morning to you. The headline today really is that there isn't one. 2 weeks in and there is no information on who committed this crime. Are there any details that you're honing in on as you follow this case?
Well, I do think there's important things that the public should be informed of so they can kind of get an idea of what they should be looking for. And first of all, let me just say this. I've been very critical of this police department, the way they first handled these things. But I have to tell you, I don't blame them at all for not telling the families anything else, because ever since this occurred, the family members have been on podcasts, they've been on newscasts, and law enforcement is automatically going to pull back on the information that they provide if that occurs. So I don't blame them for that. But what I do think that they should be doing, and they're probably not going to, because they don't want to, they think that they're going to inflame the situation of people being nervous if they do this. But people have to understand about what occurred on that night and the type of person that would do this. Now, I've heard some analysts saying things that are just soundbite related. One analyst on another network said that it was probably a female or a same-sex argument or something that inflamed it, as though he was wanting to make it an exclusive or all-inclusive type of thing. I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure that this was a young male, somebody who could get into the house and get out in that neighborhood without being seen. I don't think it was two people, because the more people you have going into that house, the more likely it is that they were going to be seen. So I think it's one male, young enough to have been in that neighborhood. I think the potential is that they entered from the second floor, because the first floor was never disturbed, and there's also a wooded area behind that house. But here's an important thing that I think people should realize. This is probably not the first time that this person did this. As I explained before, this is an adrenaline-filled incident. When somebody goes in and they kill, especially with a knife, there's a tremendous amount of adrenaline that goes into this. And to do that 4 times in one event shows that this person has most likely not done this before. So people need to realize this individual is probably odd. He's probably shown some type of behavior that people think is strange or menacing when they're close to them. And I would advise people, if they know someone like this, or if they saw something between the hours of 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock when the sun came up on the 13th of November, that they should call law enforcement and just say, this is what I saw and this is where I saw it.
Would you go so far as to say that this individual is a serial killer?
Well, I think when you look at what they did, typically killers don't rise to this level on their first shot. So somebody's not going to come in and kill 4 people unless it is a family-oriented type of thing, which this was not. You do see with mass killers, and people also need to realize the difference between somebody who is a overt killer, such as the Walmart killer or the person in Colorado that shot up a nightclub. Those people expect to be seen, and it is a fit of rage or narcissism or psychopathic dominance. But with this individual, they may share that narcissistic or psychopathic dominance, but they don't want to get caught. And so I think what we see here is something that was an escalation, where this person has probably done something violent before, potentially killing before, because remember, rapists don't start off killing, and killers don't necessarily rape. So you need to realize that this was probably an escalation, and people might have identified somebody before, again, within, I would say, at least a 3-hour travel distance to Moscow, Idaho, that this person probably lives.
Jonathan, a lot of the people who have spoken out about this case in terms of law enforcement are making statements that are leading people to believe that they do know more than what they're releasing to the public. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's true, or do you think that as of now they're still completely in the dark?
I think law enforcement knows what they know, and they could be telling us less because things have quickly gotten out to the media, or it could just be the fact that this was such a saturated crime scene, and there were so many people there before that night and that morning when people actually called other people that came there before police even got there. I find that to be the oddest, strangest thing I've just about ever heard. So I think this situation, this crime scene, is going to take time to filter out, because you got to remember, there's DNA everywhere, there's things, blood that was everywhere, so things are going to be tainted, and it takes a long time. I'd rather see the police take their time and diligently work their way through this than to succumb to peer pressure and tell people they just can't get to it, there's nothing to be worried about, or make something up. I'd rather see this diligent investigative process.
Absolutely.
If you had a child at the University of Idaho, would that child be back at class today following Thanksgiving break?
I'd be very careful with that until they find out any more information, release any information. But I'll tell you one thing people can do. I think people should go and it's a $35 purchase at Amazon. It's a driveway detector. It comes with one little thing that looks out with, I think it's IR, and then it has a monitor that goes off. People use them on their driveways all the time. You could put that at your front door, at the door of your bedroom, and you can have that thing in your room, and be prepared. Have a bright flashlight, have something that's a blunt object. If you have a concealed weapons carry permit, get ready for that. And most important for people on fraternity and sorority row, don't go out and get wasted. Don't get wasted to the point where you pass out and you don't know what's going on when you get home until I wouldn't advise that at all, but especially until they catch who did this.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we're learning about this area, great advice, by the way, there, is that this it's not New York City, where you have crimes or cameras on every corner. It's a rural college town. And obviously this area is one where there are a lot of college homes, so there may not have been the Ring doorbell cameras in the area. So when police are desperate for as much information as possible, and there are some investigators who are saying that even if you have something that may not seem like a big deal, hand it in, because what might not be in that footage is just as important as what could be in the footage. So great advice, great analysis, Jonathan. Right. Thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. Thank you. And I want to say one other thing. Yeah, sure. I was a part of the Times Square investigation where a bomber drove up on a bicycle and put a pipe bomb on the recruiting depot in Times Square in 2008. They've never been caught, and they drove all over New York City on a bicycle. Wow. So that tells you the reality of cameras. A yappy dog is better than a camera. Yeah, it's going to be a long investigation. Hopefully, with the right information and forensics, it can be cut down. But like we said, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You got it.